to Athletes, Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform for athletes and other alumni to network and connect in centralized communities. And this show is all about talking about the transition out of sports. It's such a major issue today between mental health, financial literacy, careers. And what we do is we interview former collegiate professional athletes and we talk about their transition out of sport successfully into business leadership, entrepreneurship. And the idea is to teach and inspire athletes that there is, in fact, life after sports. And today we're so lucky to have Jori Davis on. How you doing, Jori?
Doing good. Good to be here and join you on the podcast, but doing not too bad today.
Well, good. Thank you for coming. And she's already in her afternoon because she's talking to us from
Yes.
Europe. So Jori started. She played college basketball at Indiana. She was a Hoosier, and then after that, she has been playing professional basketball across 4 different continents. But amongst all that, she now is still playing, but she's getting ready for that next journey as she is the founder and CEO of WEVOLV, and we're excited to hear more about that. So, Jori, talk about playing sports growing up and how it shaped you leading up into college.
I mean, growing up in New Orleans, Louisiana, basketball, of course, in the area of New Orleans was booming. We had a lot of great talent, but at a very young age, I identified I wanted to play basketball. I guess one of those cliche stories of that it was God given that I was going to go down that journey. But for me, I was the only child. I did have a lot of cousins growing up in the South, so I always had community. However, playing basketball at a young age gave me that community and learning how to engage with other individuals. I really think sports does help you cultivate your ability to build relationships, whether they be good, bad, conflicts. All of that is kind of learned. So for me, growing up in the organization that I did, Lady Pride, shout out to them, which was the amateur team, my first team I was ever a part of. I think for me, they set the foundation of really how to approach the game, how to respect your teammates, how to respect everyone around the game. And so Lady Pride, of course, was the name that it was definitely about having pride for the game and how to play it their best way possible. And so for me, my amateur experience in playing sport with that particular group as my um, starting point, I think it was a good learning lesson for me to kind of start my career that would go on until obviously 34 years old that I am now. But for me, it was great. It was fun, community, especially being an only child. But then also I learned a lot of lessons at the beginning stages around just life in general that I think was key for me in my success in the game as I continued along the journey.
Yeah, it seems like the consensus every time I talk to different athletes, and I was a runner in high school and college, but just that whole playing sports growing up and just so many different life lessons that you have. So now let's talk a little bit about, so once you get to college, and this is a big part of what we're trying to do in helping athletes as they transition out of sports is what types were there programs when you were at IU, and not just like a 1-day workshop, but programs where the school got involved in maybe teaching more about, but once sport is over, do they talk about transition at all?
For me, I mean, I'm a little ancient these days because I've
I'm a
graduated
lot more ancient, Jordan.
a long time ago. So I would hope they have some things these days. I think they're trying, but for me, there weren't any programs to help me transition. Coach Jack, my head coach, created something called Phenomenal Women, where she individually seeked out different women and alumni that were CEOs, that were founders, that were in business, and kind of created this little network of phenomenal women that we could kind of talk to, in a sense. And then, of course, IU had a few leadership programs, Excellence Academy for those athletes that were succeeding on and off the court in their academics, but nothing that really helped us to start identifying what we wanted to do after sport, or helping us get into programs if we wanted to do media or anything like that to help give us that experience while playing. So for me, that did not exist. I think it was more so me proactively using the Phenomenal Women Connection and actually getting summer jobs with those women, with their companies that were close, that were in Bloomington. And that was kind of how I kind of tried to help myself do something outside of just sport. Before, as a program being actually created for me during my time, of course, 2007, 2011 is when I
Right.
went to IU. That didn't exist for athletes. And of course, the landscape for my generation in college was much different than it is now.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it is changing. I think schools are trying to make an effort. There's a lot to it, and it's interesting you say about your coach because that's what it seems like. At least back when you were going, even when I was going, it was more, I guess, coach driven as far as trying to help their players in getting into ultimately getting into the work world and making those connections. And I think today it still might be the case, but I think schools might be trying to do more things. As a company, we're trying to do that, creating more like an approach. We're working with various resource partners in mental health and financial literacy, and looking to go and partner with schools in their athletics, and not only help the current athletes, but I think more importantly, the alumni athletes that a lot of times get forgotten. So, we're looking forward to doing things like that. So let's talk about networking and connecting. Obviously, it's real important. That's how we met, the whole networking connecting. So talk about the importance of it, especially while you're still playing.
I think networking in general, not even just for life after, but for your sport as a professional. If you want to know, get overseas, I know a lot of people are constantly DMing random individuals that they see as experts on social media, but it's really like cultivating your network for every aspect of your life. Is key. And so building relationships with people to understand, okay, what realm of sport, what realm of business, what realm of community are they in, and if it's something that you're interested in, building relationships so you can start to understand what's going on in those sectors, and have access to information and knowledge from those sectors. And the only way to get that, I think the best way is through people. You can read and do as much as you want, be so educated, but without a network and without building relationships, it kind of isn't going to be as fruitful as you would like it to be. One of my sport management professors, I'll never forget, he always said, in sport, it's not about who you know, it's about who you know and who likes you. Because there's some people that know a lot of people, but if they come through when you need that recommendation, will they come through when you need that connection? Much different. And for people to really see and understand if they really like you, is that you have to build that relationship. They have to see your consistency. It's like dating. And so that takes time and you can't rush it. And it's better to start early, when they can see you on these stages and see interviews when you are in the forward facing light as an athlete, which other people, maybe other students on campus, don't get that advantage, but you do. So if you start building relationships and cultivating that and giving it time for them to constantly see you and understand your story, then when it comes to the end of your playing career, the other side of your career, you have a group of people that actually have gotten the chance to know you. Of course, knowing you through the media is different than what
Yeah.
the reality of who you are, but it's still an insight that they have had, and they can watch your journey and say, hey, I know this person. And that gives you an advantage to obviously help open up doors.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the key there, like you said, is relationships. I think, the one thing I always talk about networking is just, kind of paying it forward, and putting out that, like, how can I help you type attitude as well? Because I think so many people are in it to, like, help me. But I think if you reach out, but the key there, like you said, is building relationships and also starting younger. I know I was talking to one agent. He just said that the challenge is that most athletes don't network and connect when they're playing, so then they're done. Like, okay, hey, give me that big job and whatever. But what you just said, the key is that they haven't built that relationship. So it's not that easy. So definitely encourage. And even I would think back to, like, and maybe you could attest to this too, going back into high school, like just thinking about back then. I mean, obviously we're not as mature then as we are now, but just thinking about people that, whether it's friends, parents, or coaches, or, teachers, whatever it might be, but just definitely tapping into them.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely key, and staying in contact with them, staying in contact with your high school whether it be going back and saying, "Hey, I'm home for a couple weeks. If there's something that you want me to do, come speak or whatnot." Those types of things of doing that and being available um, can help you when you never know. You don't know what might happen, and you might need to rely on your school for something, or you might be looking to go back and teach. You never know. So, or you might need a gym space to host a camp. Keeping those relationships are key, and it doesn't have to be fake or just like only business driven. But like I said, for me, I think it's just letting the individuals know who you are. So when you do come with an ask, if you do have an ask, they know you, they trust you, and they're more receptive to helping you in any way. But of course, it's a give and take, and so you have to also give value, and that's
Right.
why I mean, like, it's not just keeping the connect, saying, "Hey, look what I'm doing." As an athlete, that ego part of it's not about you. So how can I utilize my platform and what's working in my favor now to give to some extent where it gives fruitful returns to the other entity or person or group. So then when I do need help, I have something to go in and ask for based on, I actually also gave. And so it's a give and take type of relationship, not just only taking.
Yeah, I mean, and that's such great advice, and hopefully, athletes listening to this definitely tap into that. So let's talk about a little bit of a controversial topic, and it wasn't when you were in school or when I was in school, but talk about NIL, name, image, likeness, and give me your thoughts, both positive and negative.
Yeah, for a positive, I think it's a great opportunity to start making money earlier in your career. Obviously, I mean, money rules everything, right? And
Yeah.
if you can start making money, that's great. You already have a scholarship. You're also making money for 4 years, possibly. You're not paying expenses. Anytime you don't have to pay expenses and you can also make money and save, that's a great opportunity for anyone. And athletes have the opportunity. The negative is we know sport industry, we can look at the history of agents historically from the beginning of time have always done bad deals and players have been dealt bad hands, bad contracts, and that's still being done. So the negative is everyone's happy about players getting paid, but are the players really going to maximize that opportunity, or is someone else going to maximize using their likeness and using the opportunity to put the money in their pockets? And ultimately, in 10 years, we're going to see all the number of NIL players that have been done dirty and they're still broke and all of these things. Um, so the negative is the landscape is not built to protect the player. The teams and the schools are building tech and everything to make sure their interests are protected, but the athlete interest is not. So that's the negative part. The other element of NIL is that it's also tied to brands. It's tied to a player being an influencer, and not all athletes are created in that way.
Right.
You see it with Kawhi Leonard, for example, how they wanted him to be something. He's not a LeBron. He's not that type of player. He's a good player and he plays the game. He loves the game, but he's not an entertainer. He's not an influencer. He is Kawhi, a basketball player. And you can't put that expectation on every player. Every player does not create content at a high level. So now, if you're telling a brand that wants to promote something, if they're going to choose the influencer that can tap into the same subgroup of fans or users that an athlete can, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to choose the athlete every time. Maybe now they're going to go back to the influencers. I don't know. So there's a lot to just take into account that people are assuming every athlete is created into this new influencer that wants to be on camera. And it's like all of these predictions of this is how many athletes, this is how much money we can make. And I'm like, wait, I know players that do not want to be on camera, nor do they want fans to be closer to them. And what I've said on every call, fans and betting is a bad, dangerous mix. And
Yeah.
now you're saying you want those same fans to now have access to get even more access to the player, that if that player makes a mistake, they're going to like destroy them. Yet alone do are they in physical danger that they now have more access. So for me, I think it's great to make money, but as they say, more money, more problems.
Yeah.
And I think preparing for those problems, I don't know if everyone has been kind of paying attention to that, but But obviously that's my spill on NIL, that not every player is wants to
Right.
be a brand. And when money comes in, who's helping them manage that? And that's kind of the hard part. I think that I don't see any strong, clear solutions for that, because the schools are trying to remove
Right.
themselves so they don't get in any trouble.
Yeah, I think it's the key there is the education. I mean, there needs to be more education with the athletes. I mean, I work with people that they're starting at the high school age and trying to work with families and their parents and just trying to educate them. Hey, you need to maybe set up a business. You're gonna have to pay taxes and just things that aren't thought about. The interesting thing, I do another podcast called NIL for You, and it seems it's great that more female athletes are getting NIL. Like I mean, obviously playing basketball, was it Caitlin Clark, the one from Iowa, that just seems like she's just getting all these endorsement deals, and then for every Caitlin Clark or Libby Dunn or Bronny James, there's a lot of other athletes that don't have that name recognition or don't, but they are still having some success, which is good. So let's talk about it. This is a new wrinkle to my show that I put in. So I asked you two questions. The first one is, what advice would you give to freshman Jori Davis at Indiana?
Hmm. Um, which is hard again, because if I'm a freshman, Jory Davis going in the NIL era, or
That's true. Yeah, you brought up you're right. That's a loaded question. Just
yeah, if
in general,
yeah, if
if you
I
want to take it
was
from that,
yeah, if I was a freshman going into the landscape of college now, how it is, I think I would have definitely made sure I set up like a business from the beginning, whether it be when I was doing the camps for the schools, or whether it be anything I did training kids. I would have set up a business to start building that business credit, um, to start building like my athlete side of Jory Davis LLC could also follow me to pro, where I could also still use that same thing. So now I would have a business track record from college to now of, that would be, 15 plus years of Jory Davis LLC being in business. Um, that alone, that would have been amazing to have that. So again, I think I would have done that differently, of really understanding how to set that up and doing that, no matter what it was pertaining to my services, my likeness, or anything. It would
right?
always go through that business entity, and then of course being able to just get with someone to figure out, okay, how can I do tax write-offs and all that stuff to really build something of value for myself. Away from that, I think I definitely would have maybe started working earlier. I know I did, 3 years of in the summer working with the companies, but I would have gone a little deeper, of really asking those CEOs, the women that were founders, to really maybe have more engagement with them, have more meetings with them to better understand how they got to where they are. Um, they were right there. So taking more advantage of having those conversations. But again, looking back, your mindset is not the same when
No,
I was
no,
a freshman. Um, but I think the biggest one would be definitely that business entity. If I could do it again, I would set that up, have the business card and all of those things, and make sure I was managing it correctly and keeping that all the way into, my pro career. That would have still been used. I would have still been able to sign contracts and stuff with my business name on there. So if I was to do it all over again, especially in the NIL era, even if I'm not a big star for any player, that would be my first step. And find unique ways, get with someone that is business savvy to find unique ways to get everything that I do. Um, those agreements are tied to my business entity, not me as, you know, just a self,
right.
you what is it, independent contractor type
Right.
individual. So that would be, I think, what I would do differently, and that would be my advice. Everything else, I think,
Oh,
I
well,
think I tried to do it
you
to the
could
best
tell
of my
Jury's
ability.
sharp and she's an entrepreneur and just going. So you answered most of it, but let's just take it. Let's fast forward to the senior year. So like looking at now as a senior getting ready to graduate, but this is where ultimately we'll get into transition into professional. But what any other advice you would give Jury from as a senior?
Jory, as a senior, I would have made more calls. I would have knocked on more doors to get to understand what was I about to encounter with the pro world. There was a lot I didn't know, and the school didn't have a program to help me know it. And so I was kind of on my own, and I relied on certain players that were closer to my age. And you could still talk to them. They did take a step maybe a year or two before you, but I really would have started to go further down, like who went 6 years, 7 years, find those people and ask them, because that's what I didn't do. And I do see a lot of players still do that. Someone that just went, made it, or just got drafted, they're asking them for advice, and it's like they haven't learned either yet. They just maybe got a taste of it. So for me, I think my biggest advice for me senior year, heading into the professional realm and the bit more of the business side of the sport, was to go find those that are like 6, 10 years removed and really seek their advice from a non-biased individual, not an agent in the business, because they're giving you biased feedback, not a coach that's still in WNBA or NBA or whatever. They're still in there. You need to find someone who is not, no longer has ties or anything to gain from what decision you make. And that's what I would have done. Um, as a senior. And that's what I would try to do every time I make any decision now, is to find that entity that was there but no longer has anything to gain and cares. So they're going to tell the truth. Then that's where I could get the best advice possible.
So that was great advice for Jori the senior, but also great advice for athletes out there, because there's a lot to take out of that, a lot of good nuggets. So you kind of teed it up good for me to segue into. Let's talk a little bit about alumni connections. Obviously, that's important to us at Alumni Direct. But when you were playing at Indiana, was there alumni coming back? Like, was the school? And I don't mean just for like that one-off, like whether it be a golf tournament, a homecoming game, or anything like that, but were there alumni coming back? So, and if you can answer that, and then maybe we'll fast forward to today.
So say the question one more time, please, just to make
Yeah,
sure I.
it was a little convoluted. Sorry about that. So, talk about when you were at IU. Was there an alumni influence coming back from the school? Like, was the school bringing alumni back, not just for that one day thing, but to kind of work and mentor
Mhm.
with the alumni, with the current athletes?
Um, Truthfully, the crazy thing is, so alumni weekends, I don't even remember alumni weekends when I was there. Like, I know there's alumni now because I'm an alumni, and players are like, some players and some former, those that were in fraternities that we know are like, when you coming back to alumni weekend? And I'm like, the funny thing is, I don't even remember when this was happening when I was a student athlete. So I know we've met former players. There were some players that were used to play. But again, it was more so they used to play here. This is what they did as athletes. They were a part of this group that won the Big Ten championship or something like that. But as you and I know, what's missing is I didn't know what those individuals did.
Right.
Were they now doctors? Were they lawyers? What were they doing as former athletes that did play, but now they obviously transitioned to something else? And then where could I go to stay in contact with them away from when we have this little engagement and I see them before a game and they say hi and, work hard and get your education and all the cliche advices. The true beauty of a connection doesn't really come in those little short moments. It comes after, when now I can say, oh, this person is in holistic health and I met them. Now I can go ask them a question or something.
Right.
That type of engagement. Or, hey, this person is in New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans and I'm here now. Hey, I see you in my city. That type of stuff is what needs to happen, and nothing has been created for that. So for me, what was there was random 1 hour, 2 hour
Right.
engagement. Hey, you played here, what you do, them admiring us for what we do. And that was it. Alumni like Mark Cubans and stuff, I would have loved to have that advantage as an athlete to connect with him if they would have
Mark Cuban went
invited
to
him.
IU.
Yeah,
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't know that. See, that learned
yeah,
something new today.
yeah. So that type of engagement with those
Right.
type of alumni, that was never something that was provided. I never got that type of alumni connection through my athletic experience. It was always just these are women that used to play and they came for the alumni
Right.
game, and that was it.
Yeah, and I think it's hopefully it's changing a little bit. I mean, every school is different. Obviously, some schools are more alumni centric. I mean, look at like Ivy League schools and schools like Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan. But I think it is important for I think alumni want to give back. It's interesting. I've had some conversations with athletes, and they've said that their schools don't reach out to them, and it's a shame because I think there's a lot of value not only for the current students, but I think a lot of athletes that once they are done they kind of get forgotten in a sense, unless you're a superstar athlete. But it would be nice to be able to tap into that alumni connection from the school because it kind of gives that leg up a little bit. So let's talk about we'll get into just the transition. So for you, you haven't totally transitioned out from professionally, but talk about your transition from college to professional.
Um, yeah, the transition from college to professional for me um, was really, I don't want to say it was like fragmented and difficult and not seamless, because there were elements that there is a system in place. But for me, that system comes with me not having any knowledge and just relying on someone to just tell me where to go. So for me, that's why it was difficult. So transitioning was hard because there wasn't a lot of information or guidance um, on the journey. Like it was just me, and finding an agent wasn't even something that I had access to. It was just kind of like, okay, you need to get an agent. Okay, how do I do that? And how do I vet them? And to this day, it's the same for many players that we talk to. Like it's the same. Maybe not the top NBA guys. They have some people kind of helping them, but in a sense, it was misguided. The resources were fragmented, and it was difficult. And so, of course, for me going abroad, my first country being Israel, that was also like kind of scary for my family as well, because even though they're grown and they're highly educated, etc., where do they go to get information on helping my daughter, who's
Right.
about to be a professional player, transition to play pro in Israel? And matter yet, where do we get information? So it was uncharted territory, and in a sense, sometimes it's the same. After 13 years of me doing the transition, it's kind of the same landscape for many players. Um, and so that's kind of how it was. It was a journey of lacking information, lacking access to the people that came before me, even though there were people in my network, but it's too hard to kind of shuffle through. Well, who do I actually call? Or who do I have who has experience? That wasn't something that made sense at the time of who could I call and who could I talk to. And that made it a stressful situation, but I still figured out how to get over and find an agent. Was it the best choices? No, but of course I did what I could with what I had, which was really not much information, going off my gut and just saying, all right, let's go with this and wish for the best.
Yeah. So now you're you're still playing, but you're getting ready ultimately to transition into life of a full-time CEO entrepreneur. So talk, you hear a lot of athletes and they struggle with, whether it's mental health or financial literacy. It seems like in your case, you've already got a pretty good game plan and mapped out to your transition out of sport ultimately. So talk a little bit about that, your mindset getting into, ready for getting out of professional basketball.
Mhm. Um, well, I mean, for me, the mindset, of course, has always been to trying to learn from those that came before me, as I said before, but also learning from myself. The transition from college to pro was shaky, and learning from that experience of, okay, what did I not do? Making sure I try my best to connect with the right individuals to help me to make this jump. Not only am I transitioning from playing the sport, but I'm also transitioning into entrepreneurship in
Right.
sport tech for something that's also highly disruptive to a market. So it's like uh, another situation that is very scary to enter into, and also transition from playing pro, where it's like I didn't make millions. you
Right.
know um I didn't make a lot of money in my career, where it's like, oh, well, you got a solid cushion, like
Yeah.
I still have to think about, okay, if I transition now, what do I go into to keep bootstrapping and self-funding WeVolve, while also, potentially finding some way to do the secondary career that isn't playing, that would I
Right.
would still be able to generate revenue. So for me, it's just been, again, asking questions, trying to reach out to those that came before me. But, again, that's also hard because what I realized, a lot of former players that are trying to help haven't fully helped themselves, truthfully.
Right.
No offense to anyone. It's just the
Sure.
reality that I've learned is that some are trying to help and build businesses that help athletes, but it's like that cushion for yourself hasn't been fully figured out. So now it's like you're kind of pressed to get funds for something that, to some athletes, including myself, I've used some of those services, and I'm like, I feel like I lost money. Like, it didn't make sense. Like, some of these things I feel shouldn't have come with a big price tag. It was simple learning things that I think came maybe with a smaller price tag, and just like go through these little basic things, and then from there it could be something else. So I think there's a mix of just trying to find the right individuals, of course, mentors, as they would love to call it. Um, that's been something I've tried to do, but of course, at the same time, it's also just been educating myself best way I can, and watch by actions of what people have done. So watching the actions and the journey of those that came before me, and learning from that, because in a sense, it's been difficult the same way it was leaving college, to find those people that really can help, because everyone's trying to survive on their
Right.
own as well.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just been that kind of transition for me thus far. Education, um, mental health, preparing myself best way I can for the emotional, stressors that are going to come from no longer having basketball and changing my lifestyle completely. And then also just making a roadmap of what life I do want, and planning that out and figuring out, okay, how do I accomplish those goals outside of just WeVolve. And so that's been the journey thus far, and just kind of continue to rock out with it.
Yeah. No, that's great. And obviously you've given a lot of thought, and I guess maybe that's some of the challenges too. That sometimes, especially like with athletes, if an injury comes or something, they get sprung on real quickly and they're done with sport, then all of a sudden, if they didn't have the plans, and then they do the different things that you just talked about, with relationships and everything else, it can be a real struggle. So let's talk WeVolve, and this is, I always talk about being the corporate commercial so much. Talk a little bit behind the scenes, but tell everybody what you're doing with WeVolve, and how you're going to make an impact on the sports world.
Yeah, definitely. Well, WeVolve, it's a mobile application with the mission to decentralize access to data, validated resources, and individuals, and help athletes make better career decisions throughout that career life cycle. We do that by mixing human and machine intelligence that will allow our platform to aggregate, anonymize that data to help the individual get the unique, individualized insights they need to make the decisions based on that community source and public data that we're gathering on the platform. And so our key feature around the data is definitely contracts. So creating legal tech for players that allows them to instantly get feedback and educated on a contract that might be put in front of them. And then making an automated process where they can find the right individual based on their jurisdiction and where they are to get help with that, whether that be the WeVolve team, or if it's something outside of our scope, being one of our legal partners around the world that can handle the type of situation that the athlete is facing, just so we can have more athletes having access to a third party or a non-biased entity to help make the best deal, to make sure they're educated and they know what they are about to sign. Um, and of course, we believe machine learning AI can help us with that, if we can continue to aggregate, get the contracts, get the data, and continue to learn from it as a community. So I kind of like to say, like, as the centennials, I think that's what they're called in the Matrix. When one centennial saw something, all the other centennials knew it. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. Like, so if one player learns something about an agent or a certain clause that agents are putting in contracts, everybody will know, and it'll always be on that digital platform to let the players know. And it keeps getting smarter and smarter as we go through our journeys, compared to me telling my journey on this podcast. It's not digitized in a way that as soon as somebody else goes through a situation I went through, it's there. It's gonna ping
Right.
them. It's gonna be already ingrained in how they can all handle their business or a contract or agreement or a situation. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish in a sense.
That would be the next venture for you and I to do like this. How do we make this podcast with machine learning and get it out to everybody?
Exactly.
Get all that good advice that you and all these other athletes have had. So that's great. So how do people find you?
They can find me on, of course, our website, www.wevolve.net. They can, of course, find me on Instagram, Jori Davis 32, or WeVolve Society on IG, Twitter, and TikTok. They can also, of course, connect with us directly at info@wevolve.net, as well as legal@wevolve.net if they have any legal questions that they want to ask, if they're not on the app, of course. We are in Apple Store and also Google Play. For athletes that want to download the app, they can request an invite via the mobile application or from the website. And yeah, that's and of course I'm not hard to find. LinkedIn, Jori Davis, whatever. Just DM me, hit me up, and at this point, it's kind of like the startup phase. So we're readily accessible to everybody on all platforms and also via the website.
That's great. It's really exciting. I definitely encourage athletes to, reach out and tap into WeVolve and get involved in the, joining the app. Also reaching out to Jori. It's been great. You can find us on alumnidirect.com. The show is on our YouTube channel as well as all across all the podcast networks. And I encourage people to listen and follow the show. It's just there's so much great information coming from these athletes, whether they're collegiate athletes or professional athletes. They have a lot to help out. And as we said in the beginning, it's just such a major issue today, and we really want to help impact this. So, Jori, again, it's been great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it as well. Thank you for the having me on, and definitely look forward to ways Alumni Direct and WeVolve can collaborate in the future.
Absolutely sounds great. Well, thanks. Have a great day, everybody.